welcome to Everything Fear. Today I'm going to be looking at my personal top 5 horror movies of 1987. Hello and welcome to Everything Fear, your one-stop shop for all things horror. I'm Kit Tinsley, I'm a horror author, film academic and general horror geek. Today is episode 10 in our series A Life in Horror. In this series I look at my personal top 5 horror movies of every year that I've been alive. This time it's the year 1987. Number 5. Hellraiser. Clive Barker's directorial debut, based on his novella The Hellbound Heart, was one of the most groundbreaking horror movies of the 1980s. A supernatural horror movie that gave the slasher genre a run for its money in terms of gore and violence. It introduced the world to the Cenobites and their leader, Pinhead. These trans-dimensional beings were explorers in the farthest reaches of human experience. Though only on screen for a short time, they still managed to have such an impact that they basically became the entire advertising campaign for the movie. Barker's way of exploring S&M in a horror setting was completely new and terrifying. Number 4. Near Dark. Catherine Bigelow's vampire movie eschewed so many of the norms of vampire movies. There are no fangs on display in this film, and the word vampire is never uttered once. The film plays out like a modern horror western, with a family of nomadic vampires travelling the south trying to find food. With great performances from Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton, amazing cinematography, and a tone that was interesting and unsettling, this was a very serious and violent addition to the 80s vampire movie trend. Number 3. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. The Dream Warriors. Following the second movie in the franchise, this one feels more like a true sequel to the first movie. This is partly down to the script being co-written by Freddy's creator, Wes Craven, and also due to Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon reprising their roles from the first movie. This was the point in the franchise where the nightmares became grand spectacles and set pieces. It was when Freddy began to add humour to his kills. However, this humour was black and the character remained scary. Later he would of course veer into the territory of killer clown, really. Dream Warriors remains many people's favourite in the franchise, and though I personally put it in third place, I will admit that it is definitely the most entertainingly rewatchable entry in the entire series. Number 2. Evil Dead 2. Sam Raimi's sequel to his 1981 horror masterpiece is really more of a remake of that film with a bigger budget. The events of the first movie are not mentioned, and the first 20 minutes or so of this movie are essentially a streamlined remake of the original. However, the bigger budget meant that the special effects were much better. And also, there was a lot more humour added to this movie. A lot of this humour works because of the insanely brilliant physical performance of Bruce Campbell. That man's ability to beat himself up surpasses anyone out there. Arguably, this is the best movie in the Evil Dead franchise. If you enjoy this video, if you could please subscribe, give us a like, and maybe tickle that bell icon to be notified when we upload future content, that would be great, thank you. Number 1. My favourite horror movie of 1987? The Lost Boys. A script written with the idea that Peter Pan and his gang were in fact vampires, set into production by Richard Donner, with him to decide that the plot was a little too close to his previous film The Goonies, and that he would just produce. He hired Joel Schumacher to replace him as director. This turned out to be a wonderful decision. Schumacher made the brilliant choice to up the age of every one of the characters from the children into younger teens and the younger teens into late teens. The result is one of the coolest and most entertaining vampire movies ever made. A masterful blend of horror and comedy, with an amazing soundtrack. It may well be one of the most 80s films of the 80s. But somehow, that doesn't make it cheesy, tacky or uncool. It just makes it all the cooler. So many good performances in this movie, from Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman. So many iconic lines, so many iconic scenes. Not only is this my favourite horror movie of 1987, it's also pretty close to being one of my favourites of the entire 1980s, and all time. Well, that was my list of my personal top 5 horror movies of 1987. What were yours? Let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, stay scared and stay tuned.